This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Selling a little or a lot? Do your thing however you cha-ching with Shopify, the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. Get a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/offer23.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, your premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers, and I am your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. After several months of learning about hammocks and purchasing a hammock setup from R&R Hammocks, I am finally ready to have an educational and hopefully informational chat about hammocks and why I've chosen to venture into hammock life. And I want to give another huge thank you and shout out to Richard at R&R Hammocks for setting me up with some great gear, and to Paul Collins, or as I always say, you all know him as Skunk Ape, for pretty much holding my hand along this journey into hammocks. And to join in on all of this hammock talk, Austin is back with me today to chime in about his love for hammocking as well. So thanks for joining us as we share what we've learned about hammocks, and I will say, Austin's preferred way of camping out is hammocking, so his knowledge and what he's learned is very seasoned compared to mine. And now on to this week's episode titled, Let's Talk Hammocks. All right, Austin, here we are again. Welcome back to the podcast.
What's up?
And this time, guess what? We're going to talk about gear.
I hate talking about gear. It's like bamboo shoots under the fingernails, but okay.
But this time we're going to talk about, okay, everybody knows at this point we have a love for a particular tent. And if everybody doesn't know what that is, it's called the X-Mid 1 in Austin now, or is going to be getting sometime or another in the year of 2022, the X-Mid Pro.
Oh, and it's so sweet. I can't wait to put my hands on it. For a tent, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
but
okay.
I will say, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're both ground dwellers.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I lived in a tent for 3 weeks, so I know how to tent. But for the purposes, not just for the purposes of this episode, but I'm going on record with this episode as saying I prefer hammocks all the time. If I have the option to hammock, I'm going to hammock, no matter how gee whiz the tent is. Sorry, Dan.
And well, here we go. I'm learning that. So I think everybody all of the listeners at this point, they're like, oh my God, Jester, please stop talking about how you're going to get a hammock and what you're going to do. So we all know at this point, I have received my hammock. I've actually set it up in the backyard a few times. I have a couple trips planned, some weekend stuff with some girlfriends planned, but I've gone down the rabbit hole of, I need this particular part. I need that particular part. I say parts, but it's like whoopie slings and clips and ridgelines and all these things that I've had to learn. But before we scare everybody off for this episode.
It's great. Just do it.
It's good. So let's tell everybody, for me, the reasons I really wanted to get into hammocking, bottom line, I wanted to get off the ground.
Yeah.
Tired of rolling out of a tent, rolling into the tent. I think I've reached, or I'm going to say I have earned the right and the age to start seeking different avenues to get off the ground. But as we all know, there are particular trails that you go on where you have to use a tent. But going forward, my plan is where I can hammock, I will backpack with a hammock. So those are my reasons. But Austin, you seem to be a hammocker from the get-go, maybe. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, at least from the YouTube get-go, because I kind of switched into hammocks about the same time that I started talking to cameras. And so before that, I was purely a tenter. And I've got a big Agnes copper spur freestanding tent. And what got me interested in hammocks to begin with was the fact that I was just trying to switch it up, just trying to see, like, because I see people on YouTube and they're singing this song about hammocks, and I'm like, well, let's just see. And
you wanted to join the choir, didn't you, Austin?
Yeah, I was going to see if I could sing a solo or something like that. But so that's what got me like just looking. And then when I started hearing about how much more comfortable it could possibly be, that's what really intrigued me. And so that's when I took the plunge.
And I think probably the number one thing or question that I have gotten during this hammock, I'm going to call it the 21-22 Jester hammock adventure, of learning and researching like hours and going to hammock hangs and all kinds of stuff. Is probably the most thing that somebody says to me is, well, it's going to be heavier. Your hammock is going to be heavier because now you have to carry like 2 quilts and you have to carry this, you have to carry that. And I'm like, it's really not.
So it's not, they're not incorrect. Like, it just depends on your setup though. But in my mind, the weight difference is negligible when you compare the comfort level. Because like the setup I have right now, I sleep like a baby. Like, I don't wake up in the middle of the night. I will sleep through the night, which I never did in a tent. Even now, like in the 3 weeks on the JMT where I slept in my X-Mid, I never slept through the night. I always woke up in the middle of the night, tossing and turning or uncomfortable. But I sleep better in my hammock now than I do at my bed at home. So any increased weight, 100% worth it in my mind. So,
well, I'll tell you what, the first time I saw my actual hammock set up, hanging from 2 trees with the tarp and I did the whole shebang, I got a quilt, the quilt is specifically made for me. The gentleman, Richard at R&R Hammocks, he had never made a quilt that was kind of a box style at the feet.
Okay.
I guess it's enclosed. I had no clue what an underquilt was or what it looked like or how it hung on to the bottom of the hammock. And when I got in that thing, I was like, good night, y'all. Like, I mean, I turned and nestled to the side and I was like, oh my God, this has been worth all my agony, all my research. So I'm excited. I think part of the reason that I kind of steered away from long backpacking trips is because I just didn't want to have to deal with being on the ground. And now I'm excited again. It's like, ooh, I get to find 2 trees. It's like a whole nother adventure.
And it opens up the possibilities when you're camping and like as a tenter, you're looking for that elusive flat spot on the ground, where stealth camping is way easier now, because you can sleep on the side of a mountain. You can sleep on, over some rocks or like whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as you got 2 trees that are the right distance apart, you're good to go.
And I am still trying to work out how I'm going to carry everything though. So that process in my mind, I'm like, okay, whose cottage company am I going to blow up for some, DCF bags? And it's opened my eyes to a whole nother set of companies.
Yep.
This Dutchware gear and all this kind of stuff that I had like no clue whatsoever. Yep. Now I'm watching all different types of videos. Skunk Ape told me to watch a guy named Shug. Have you ever watched him?
Oh yeah. He's like the grandfather. I mean,
I'm addicted to Shug now. It's like, I'm like, who? He's like, you got to watch Shug. So all of a sudden, it's like he's got every video that you could possibly think of about hammocking. and it's awesome, but it is a little bit different adventure. It's still not as cut and dry. I'm still a total noob, and I have no idea what I'm doing, which is why I wanted to have you on here, because I feel like you know what you're doing.
Well, I'm glad I at least put that out, because I don't. That's part of that's life in general. As long as you look like you know what you're doing, people will believe you, think you're legit. But I have no idea what I'm doing. I learned. So perfect example. I just got finished doing a trip down to Alabama, the Alabama Triple Crown with As the Crow Flies hiking. But it was the first time in a long time that I had used my hammock setup, and I'm getting my tarp out, and it's it took me probably a solid 15 minutes to set up my tarp, because I couldn't remember how to do it or whatever. And so embarrassing, because like most of these guys I hadn't met before, and so I'm like, just this thing is just kicking my tail, and I'm just it's just, yeah. So
and they're all laughing at you because they're out there Z-Packs duplex tents,
oh my
right?
gosh, yes, they're Z-Packs crew. There were some hammockers in there too, but they're the Z-Packs crew for sure. But yeah, I don't know. So let's talk.
Yeah, I think you do. But you're back into it now, right?
Yeah,
you're like, yeah, let's
dusted the cobwebs off. We're good now.
We're good. So the only way I can tell you, my setup is actually from R&R Hammocks. And one of the reasons I went with R&R was because everything came in one package.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's what I need. I just need everything to show up, and I don't want to have to pick, this from that company, and go down that rabbit hole. And now that everything has shown up and I've put it up a couple times, all I know is I have a DCF tarp. I have, he calls it the Hammocka. It's an 11-foot hammock. I have a new top quilt. I have an under quilt. I have a bug net, and I have stakes.
Living large.
I know. But I have learned I had no idea what anything was called on the hammock, as far as like the ropes and how to tie it up, and straps and buckles and whoopie slings and clips and all this kind of stuff. So I am now venturing down that rabbit hole, because in my mind, this whoopie sling thing, that is not working for Jester.
Nope.
So
I went down I rode the whoopie sling train for a little while too, and it just, no. So like,
it seems cool, but
yeah, because it is lighter. My first hammock, I don't use it anymore. I still have it. My first hammock was the REI Quarter Dome Air, and I got it for the exact same reason you did, is that it came as a set. So when you bought that thing, it came with your stakes, it came with the hammock, it came with the tarp, it got everything you need in one box. And it had whoopie slings to keep. It's fun to say whoopie slings. Let's see how many times we can say it in a podcast.
I know people are like, oh my God, they have gone over the edge.
But what threw me for a loop was it got tangled or something like that the first time I used it, and so I didn't know which end to pull, and so it was like,
oh yeah,
I've got a college degree, but that thing took me for a ride. So yeah, no whoopie
Listen,
slings
Richard
for me.
was trying to show me all these different knots, and I was like, okay, Richard, I love you and I love this set, but that's not going to work for me. That's like, but that has been fun, and that's part of the learning curve.
Oh yeah, you can't get stagnant, and you always got to be leaning forward and learning, and that's at least something that I like about it.
So how do you pack out of curiosity, how do you pack up your hammock and all that? Is everything bagged separately? Tell me how you do that.
So now I have the Warbonnet Ridgerunner, and so it does pack up in separate bags. So like the hammock itself has a bag with openings at both ends. So
I got to get one of those.
Yeah, you once you get one of these, you'll because what it enables you to do is, so I have straps and buckles for my suspension system. So you've got this bag with buckles poking out each end, and so you take one end and you wrap it around the tree and clip it in, and then you just, as you walk to the other side, it pulls the hammock out of the bag, and then you clip it to the other tree, and then you're good. And then when it comes time to break it down, all you got to do is stuff the hammock into the bag, and so the hammock never touches the ground.
All right, I got to get one of those. Okay, check. Okay, so.
Yep. And then,
all right, what else you got for me? So
my backpacking setup. So I have a DCF tarp as well, from Hammock Gear, but I don't always use it because it's insanely expensive, and so I only bring it out for backpacking when weight's a factor. I also have a Easthill Outdoors Dragon Fly tarp, which I actually don't make anymore, sadly, but I use that for like kayak camping and stuff like that when weight's not as much an ip. And
now, wait a minute. Is that a Sil Poly tarp?
It is a Sil Poly tarp.
Okay, yeah.
It gets.
See, I'm learning.
But it's not a nice one. It's an Amazon special. I've got a it's a Winter Dream tarp. I just can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head. But anyways,
how many tarps do you have, Austin?
Just two.
Okay. I was getting ready to say, we're going to keep going here?
We need more, Jester. We need more.
Okay. Yes, we do. So I see, I don't have a Sil Poly tarp. I'm like, what's the deal?
You've got a DCF tarp, so you're good. Yeah.
I know, but I feel like you said, I'm nervous about it because it's fragile.
It is, as long as you take care of it. And it's not the end of the world to poke a hole in it, because I have poked a hole in mine before on a trip, and that's why we carry repair tape. So it's not the end of the world.
All right. So the Warbonnet Ridgerunner is your hammock itself.
Yes.
Your DCF tarp, Hammock Gear, made that. Mm-hmm. And do you have that thing? I don't know what it's called. Something else goes over the tarp. I have that. And your tarp folds up into this.
What is
that called? Yes. Okay. Yep. So I have that too.
Yeah. The snakeskin revolutionized packing up the tarp for me, because it just makes it so much easier. Keeps everything rolled up and nice and neat, and keeps it from getting tangled. All
right. So your hammock is in its own little bag with the ends open at the end with ties or whatever. And then your tarp is in the snakeskin. Do you put that in a bag?
Yeah. So I've got a separate bag for that. Once it goes into the snakeskin, I just roll it up and stuff it in its own little bag.
Okay.
And that's mainly just because it may or may not be wet. And so if you're packing that in your pack, you want to keep that kind of protected so it's not getting any of your other stuff wet. So that's the main reason, putting that in its own bag. And then I also have a bag since the Ridgerunner is a bridge hammock. So I guess this is our opportunity to talk about different kinds of hammocks. So most hammocks that you see out there are gathered end hammocks, which is kind of like that cocoon. When you think of like a Eno hammock or anything like that, that's a gathered end hammock. The bridge.
Okay. So apparently that's what I have.
Yeah.
Gathered end.
The bridge hammocks have spreader bars. So it actually has bars at either end that keep the hammock extended out. I like that because it feels like I can probably sleep in a gathered end hammock, but I'm not going to get that good REM cycle sleep. And
oh boy!
And so that's what the spreader bars or the bridge hammock for me makes me feel like I'm less confined. And so I will. But anyway, so the bridge hammock has spreader bars. The Ridgerunner has bars that can collapse down. They just look like big tent poles. And I went and sprung for some carbon fiber spreader bars for the Ridgerunner. So it shaved off a few ounces off of the stock ones that they send from Warbonnet. So yeah. So anyways, those go in a separate bag too. So every little piece has its own bag.
We're going to be going to like Gear Anonymous is what we're going to be doing.
Are you not already there? Oh, this is
wait a minute.
Am I the only one? Oh no.
I got scared for a minute. You were quiet. Okay. So, all right, we've got the tarps covered. We've got the actual hammock itself covered, the snake skids. Okay. So top quilt. I have a top quilt and I have an under quilt now. But I think you do something a little bit different.
I do, because I'm cheap. Which sounds hilarious when you talk about all the other stuff we bought, but
yeah, that can't even. I don't even understand that.
But no, so it has two reasons. Most people you'll see have an under quilt underneath their hammock, and that's kind of the way. The reason for that is if you were to lay on down. The down loses its insulating properties when you sleep on top of it, so it's not giving you anything. The down's not giving you anything underneath. So when you hang an underquilt underneath your hammock, that down is not being compressed at all. So it's still able to maintain its insulating properties. And so that's the whole idea behind the underquilt. I have not gone to the underquilt. My hammock actually has a sleeve that you can put a air mattress in. So I have the Thermarest Neo Air X Therm, which is one of the warmer pads, a 4-season pad, and that goes into that sleeve. So that does two things. The first is it has excellent insulating, so it keeps me warm even when it's super cold. The other thing it does is it gives some more structure to the hammock. So like I had mentioned that I don't like being confined, so this gives it more of like a sleeping on a bed kind of a feel. But the reason I really haven't, because it works, but it's not the conventional what you would think of, every other hammocker does. But the reason I have not really gone to an underquilt is because the air mattress actually packs down smaller than an underquilt would, and it's either the same weight or right around, just about the same weight. So I'm like, I don't mind blowing this thing up. So that's the one thing that differs for me from what you might normally see hammockers in. And it works for me. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll get an underquilt. The thing with the underquilts though is like the bridge hammocks are just a different structure than everybody else's. So I can't just go off, and I have to find an underquilt that is made for a bridge hammock.
I was going to say it wouldn't hug it like a cocoon, kind of like an underquilt hugs underneath which I'm learning, hugs underneath your hammock. And right now, since the majority of my hiking tends to be spring through the summer, I'm not sure I'm even going to need we'll see. I'm not sure I'm going to need an underquilt.
You might want something like a light one, you're not going to need some deep freeze, 0 degree underquilt.
I think my underquilt's 20 degree.
Oh, well, you're good then. That'll take you.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm going to test it all. I'm going to test it all. And I'm going to test all these, I didn't even know what it was called, but it's all the suspension systems. I just called it how you hug the hammock up. I mean, hey, what do you do?
Who knew there was, because it seems like a simple concept, tarp, hammock, but there's so many different ways to do it and so many different facets and accessories and different ways to do this and that and the other. There's a lot of different modifications that you can do.
There are. And after watching Shug, I mean, seriously, I've learned so much I didn't know I know what a daisy chain is. I didn't know there were daisy chain straps. Of course, I know the whoopie slings, but I got to get away from that. And then the straps and all the buckles and why use this buckle versus that buckle and the tightening and the loosening and when it's wet and what happens to the straps when they get wet. I was like, okay, now wait a minute. I didn't know about all this stuff. So and what happened. But if you think about it, it all makes sense. Yeah. Like if it's cold outside, the straps are going to operate differently than when it's warm outside or when they're wet and all that kind of stuff. So So right now, I have a combination of things. I have like a strap, a whoopie sling, and then whatever the string is called that hooks onto your hand. I'm terrible. This is terrible. So what is your suspension system? What do you use?
They call it buckles, but essentially like the little carabiners from Warbonnet, and then the nylon straps. And then... I've got some, so for the Ridgeline for my tarp, I bought the Ridgeline Kit from Dutchware that has what he calls a wasp. And, the first time, and goes back to, when I was getting myself embarrassed in the woods last weekend with all the other YouTubers. But I couldn't remember how to use the darn thing. So you definitely have to read the directions the first time, because it's not, once you understand how to use it, you're like, oh, because it is very simple to use once you understand how to use it. But you can set up your Ridgeline with no knots. You can tighten it very easily and then just lock it in wherever you need. But anyway, so yeah, I've got the Dutch Wasp for my Ridgeline kit, and it seems to work. And then I've also put some pole mods to pull the tarp out just to give me a little extra room. And so I actually take my trekking poles, and I've got little strings of line on pullouts on the tarp. And so you can lay the trekking pole on top of the ridge line and then connect either end to these loops, and it pulls the tarp out just a little farther. So you got some extra room in there, which for me is important because I've got spreader bars. So if I don't have enough room and the tent or the tarp is resting against the bars, it can poke a hole in it, which it has.
Gotcha.
And
now, does your tarp have doors?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I did do that right because everything says get doors, so
yeah,
I did.
You want doors because, like, for the way I keep them, I just kind of have some shock cord with mitten clips on the end, and so when I don't want the doors, I just clip the two ends together so they're tucked out of the way, and then when I want them, it's just as easily as unclipping it and clipping them down. But it's just that little extra bit of protection from wind and rain and that kind of stuff. It kind of gives you some extra dryness, so you're not worrying about things blowing in on you.
And that's a whole nother craft too. Okay, so once you learn your straps and you get your system down, then you have it down. You don't have to worry about it. And another craft I'm going to have to learn, which is a challenge, which is good, is the different ways to actually set up your tarp. Mm-hmm. If you know it's not going to rain, you can pull it up a certain way, this, that, or the other. Haven't learned. There's a bunch of videos out there. So I feel like you and I are going to have to come back again after I have actually done some real live backpacking with my entire setup. Not just at a campground or something like that. So it's going to be an interesting summer, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, there's some pro hammockers out there. Like, so I was very fortunate to meet all of these guys on this trip, this YouTuber trip, the Alabama Triple Crown. But one that stuck out, at least in the hammocking world, was Miyagi. And that's his YouTube channel. He's not actually a Japanese guy.
Is he Miyagi on the trail?
Yeah,
is that his Instagram?
Miyagi
okay,
on the trail.
Yeah.
But he makes his own gear, which I'm always fascinated with when anybody that makes their own gear. But he has got an ultralight hammock system that he made himself, and the hammock is actually made out of this mesh material, and it weighs, I think he said 9.5 ounces. For the hammock. Yeah. When you consider how much my Ridgerunner is probably the better part of like 30 something ounces. So for a hammock that weighs 9 ounces, awesome. And then he made his own DCF tarp too. And that's like, 5.7 ounces, something like that. So, I mean, just crazy light. And he'll be the first to tell you, though, like, the trade-off is the durability, because he uses a 0.34 DCF. So that's a super thin DCF. And then the mesh.
I was going to say, there you go with that nerd talk again. I don't even, or geek, that geek talk, not nerd, sorry.
But anyways, yeah, super thin DCF. So he'll be the first to tell you that, the compromise there is durability, but it's funny because he said he talks to other like hammock manufacturers, hammock companies, and they like, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but they're like, yeah, thanks for making something that's lighter than our super light or ultra light hammock. Like, so they're like a little upset with him that he's making stuff that's actually lighter than theirs.
I was trying to look up as you were talking the weight of my hammock. I have no idea. I should know these things. Maybe I'll get really geeky and technical the next time. I'm not stressed. I'm more stressed about hanging it than anything, than any of the robes or anything. I'm more stressed about that. And it's just going to take me a few good nights out there to go, yeah, okay, ease your mind. That was all silly. Now look on these websites and how are you going to improve this, that, or the other? So, but that's all the process of learning.
Yep, absolutely.
And making things fun. So, all right. Well, I hope we have not talked anyone out of hammocking.
No, you definitely need to at least try it once. Go borrow somebody's hammock and try it at least once before you stave it off.
And one thing we failed to mention is a bug net.
Yeah.
So the bug net I have, and I'm learning there's different styles. There are some that are zipped into the hammocks automatically. You could never like move it or get rid of it. So mine is actually a whole separate piece. So if I don't want to use it, it just slides, on the line, on the ridge line or whatever. And I just scoot it out of the way. And then if I want to cover up my hammock and everything, then it zips up.
That's
fancy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, yeah, mine's the same way.
I mean, you were looking at me like, what is she talking about?
No, I think most are like that.
Okay.
Mine,
I don't know.
Mine zips. Mine's got a horseshoe zip. So you can zip it all the way down to one end and roll it up and store it down there if you don't want to use it. But I think a bug net's a must. Even when it's cold, believe it or not, this sounds crazy, but I still get just a little bit of insulation from the bug net mesh. Cause you can actually feel a difference when you unzip it. So this last trip we took, I got down to 24 degrees, overnight. And so you can actually feel a difference when I unzipped the bug net and stuck my head out. I was like, oh, it's not drastic. It's still cold, but maybe 5 degrees difference, just with that little insulation. So even if there's no bugs, a bug net's still a good thing.
Yeah. And 5 degrees is a lot when you're cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was cold. It was cold.
So I guess for me, maybe what I want to leave the listeners with is, I've pretty much put myself out there that, over this past year, I really had no clue. And I've just gone through this learning process, and it's been a lot of fun. And I've met a lot of new people that are really into hammocks and very helpful people. Even you, willing to come on this episode and talk with me, the noob, into this world of hammocks. But I guess the cons that I've heard is it just takes too long to set up when you get to camp, and it might be a little heavier. It's definitely going to be heavier than my all new X-Mid 1-person tent, but it gives us options.
Yes.
And to me, in the beginning, I was like, this just seems like a lot. It's cumbersome and I don't want to deal with it. But I've totally changed my mind on that, because at the end of the day, and Crow and I even talked about this on his his episode a while back. It's about comfort for me now when I go backpacking.
Yeah, 100%. You've got to be comfortable out there.
Yeah. So I'm all about moving into the comfort side of things, because when I'm comfortable and I get a good night's sleep, I can hike more. So that's the reality of it for me. Austin, how about you?
Yeah, it all boils down to, like you said, just getting good sleep and the trade-offs. Sure, there's going to be trade-offs. It's, initially there's going to be a learning curve that you got to get over as far as figuring out how to set things up. It can be, it's going to feel like an insurmountable goal to figure out what's going to work for you. Because there's so many different options, and there's a lot of expensive options out there. But yeah, for me, it like you said, and I said at the very beginning of the episode, I'll always, when given the choice, I'm always going to hammock, because it's just more comfortable, and you get better sleep. You're going to be more refreshed when you wake up in the morning, and you're going to be able to be more comfortable when you hike the next day. So yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Well, awesome. So I think after this episode, you're coming back on one more time, and then we're going to kind of take a break for the summer. And then we're going to come back in the fall, and we're going to talk about all the awesome adventures we had this summer. And Hopefully. We're going to talk about hammocks again.
Yeah. about what went well and what didn't go well, right?
Exactly. I'll have a little tutorial by then on what to do and what not to do.
You'll be an expert by then.
I don't think so, but I'm going to try. All right, Austin, thanks for joining me again. This has been fun.
All right. Thanks for having me. We'll see you next time.
All right, you guys, thanks for hanging in there with us as Austin and I yammered on about hammocks. I am truly a novice when it comes to the hammock world, but I find it fun and a new challenge as I venture out on my section hikes this year. Thanks, Austin, for sharing your perspective on hammocking as well. As always, you could go over to the hikingradionetwork.com and click on the Jester Section Hiker Show to find all of today's show notes, pictures, and links mentioned in this episode. If you find value in what we do here at the network and want to give back to help in the production of all of our shows on the network, you could always leave a donation by clicking on any one of the donate buttons found on our website. And please be sure to leave us a note on why you enjoy our shows. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be safe out there and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Wells Fargo presents one of the surest ways to grow your money, a Wells Fargo CD account, where you can earn a 5.00% annual percentage yield on an 11-month term with a minimum opening deposit of $5,000. Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/CD rates to open a CD account and start growing your savings with us.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.